Hello and welcome back to another episode of Coffee with a Kick. Sayonara international breaks. We've just got 2 straight months here of soccer, some football, and some more soccer. With 8 match days remaining, we still have some qualifications and technically some relegations to resolve, but I think that some of our answers may come this week to spoil it a little bit. Anything you want to talk about before we dive right into match day 30?
It'll be a quick turnaround. You got midweek games starting on the 2nd, more continuing on the 3rd, one on the 4th, and then another game, I think, immediately on the 5th. So we're literally getting Premier League football pretty consistently for the next 2 months. You also have Champions League to think about. We also have the FA Cup that's in the semifinal. But Premier League is what we care about most. Maybe as a City fan, I care about the FA Cup more because that might get us a trophy. But hey, we're going to learn a lot over really these next 6 days. Like the next 6 days are probably going to end up telling us more than we've gotten the rest of the season. So it's going to be a big couple of match days for a few teams.
Yeah, by Monday evening of next week, a lot of our questions may be answered. If Liverpool doesn't drop any points, that's basically sealed it for them fully. I mean, they're well ahead already. But, my Wolves have 2 winnable match days as well, and that could wrap up relegation. And then we're just fighting for Champions League qualification for next year. But we'll go ahead and get into the more granular results here. Starting off with on Tuesday the 1st, on April Fool's Day. It's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Skip the 4th so you can catch your Final Four match. Then you can come back on the 5th for the beginning of match day 31. But Arsenal and Fulham kick us off here with another London derby. How do you think that the Gunners will fare in this one?
I think I have it 2-2. I think Arsenal know they need to win, but like we've talked about, Fulham kind of in the game as far as Europe goes. So I think they'll come out wanting to play pretty hard. Arsenal would have had more players out on international duty, so we'll see how that kind of plays into the squad selection. But I think it goes 2-2. I think Fulham's got what it takes to stay in it and get a point.
If we were at Craven Cottage, I'd be right there with you. But we're at Arsenal's place. We're at the Emirates, so I don't believe that they'll be able to pull it off. Fulham will be able to pull off. I think they'll make it close. They've got it 2-1. I don't think I've got it 2-1. I've got it 2-1, with Arsenal still taking all 3 points to make a show at least of pressure against Liverpool, so they can't just coast to the champion to the wrapping up the title trophy too quickly. But the other match at the same time, concurrently, than Wolverhampton, is my Wolves versus the Hammers of West Ham. And for this one I do have 2-2. I don't think that we get the full 3 points, but a point against West Ham almost fully settles it, as far as relegation concerns are concerned.
Yeah, I have it 2-1. It's at home for Wolves. Like we've already kind of talked about, they're up 9. So getting a win here literally would solidify a staying in the Premier League. So West Ham, they've been very up and down in form. I feel like Wolves have honestly been playing better. The results haven't necessarily followed every single match, but they've been playing really well, especially when they're healthy. I think they have what it takes to beat West Ham, win 2-1, extend their lead to 12 points, and stay up for next season.
Listen, I'll take it for sure. I just don't like to pick them to win. And then for the last match on April Fool's Day, we have Nottingham Forest taking on Manchester United. At least they gave Nottingham Forest the advantage here as far as units are concerned. Still 2.32. Are you going to take that money and run? Or are you going to go for the underdog Manchester United?
I am going to go 2-0. Nottingham takes it. Again, Nottingham know that they're not out of second place yet.
No.
They know that they could, for the first time in forever, finish in the top two. First time ever in the Premier League, but top tier English football, first time in forever.
Yeah.
And Man U, obviously, they're in pretty fine form, 8 points out of their last 12. That's pretty decent, unbeaten in 4. But I just don't think that this Man U team has the resolve, especially after an international break, to come back as cohesive as they would like to be. I think Nottingham takes it 2-0 at home.
I'll leave this up to you. Do I need to change my pick? Because I also have 2-0.
If you feel like the shoe fits.
I think I need to. We do not have any luck when we both have the same result, the same exact result. I'm still going to leave Manchester United on the deficit in this. 2-1 is how I will put it. I think 2-2, 2-0 is better, but I don't think that. You know what? I'm going to go 3-0. I'm actually going to just move it the other way. 3-0 to Nottingham Forest. 3-1 to Nottingham Forest.
Wow.
One of those will end up being also wrong, because it'll be something totally different. But yeah, Nottingham Forest, just the better team right now. Manchester United, at this point, I mean, do they really have, aside from their own personal pride, I don't think they really have too much to play for. I mean, they're 7 points out of 10th. So even getting up into the top 10, the top half of the table, is going to be pretty hard to pull off. I mean, they're going to need Bournemouth to not get much more, and they're going to have to get everything out of it. So I don't know. Maybe the bragging rights of beating Tottenham in the season is all that they can really go for. So I don't know that they're going to be that enthused about having to continue through these last 8 weeks. But we'll move from there to a team that's on the verge of kissing the Premier League goodbye for at least another season. Bournemouth. Oh, speaking of Bournemouth, Bournemouth hosts Ipswich Town. And this, I will go ahead and repeat myself, which is, I will now be repeating myself. 3-1 is how I have it for Bournemouth. Ipswich Town, they're not up to snuff with the Premier League. I think it's just plain and simple like that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have it 4-1. Bournemouth really need a result.
They do.
They lost 3 of their last 4, drew the 1 previous to this last one, Matchday 28. They need a result. And they know that they're on 44 points. If they don't start getting these types of results, they can kiss Europe goodbye. They've still got a shot in there. Even sitting at 10th, they've got a shot at Europe. So I think they'll be at home, understand that this game actually has weight. Ipswich will lose 4-1. And with my result, Wolves will be clearly up by 12, and goal difference might tell you they're safe.
Yeah. With your pair of results, there ain't nothing good. There's nothing that Ipswich can do at that point. Well, we'll see. Leicester, I mean, their goal difference is even worse. And they have a much stronger opponent, which we'll get to here momentarily. But before we do, we've got Brighton Hove Albion hosting Aston Villa at the Amex. Do you think that Brighton can get some points here at home? They've been doing better lately at home, better than they had in prior portions of the season. But do you think that they can continue to get points? I mean, they're unbeaten in 3 at home at the moment, as far back as I've looked right here. Yeah, unbeaten in 3.
Yeah, I like this one to be a 2-2 draw. I think 2-2. Aston Villa is probably the better team, but Brighton is in an extremely good amount of form. They're one of the teams that benefits from not having a ton of stars. A lot of their squad most likely was not at an international break of any sort, playing constantly, practicing constantly. So they got to take a little bit of a rest, stay in the facility, stay in Brighton, and kind of work on some things. And I think that benefits these teams a lot more than it would in Aston Villa or a City or whoever it might be. So I think 2-2 is going to be a good result for them and keeps them in the race for that Europa League, ECL, even Champions League, because if they draw, they're only 1 point off.
Yeah. I don't think it'll go as well for Brighton. I think I've got it as a 4-1 victory for Aston Villa, which is kind of crazy. Thinking about it now,
could happen.
It could happen. I mean, I'll just leave it at that. I'll just leave it as a 4-1 victory for Aston Villa. Maybe they got too much sun and too much beach there, sticking home at Brighton for the international break. There on the southern side of England. But we'll move from that to the aforementioned Leicester City, going into the Etihad, the biggest point spread here for the weekend, for the midweek, for the match day. Manchester City, I think this one's neat, tidy. It better be 4-1 is what I've got here. I don't trust you guys to keep a clean sheet, obviously, but I think you definitely get a convincing win.
Yeah, it's looking like Haaland is going to be out for the season after the FA Cup injury, which is tough. But honestly, there's only a month left in the season. Kind of a failed one anyway. Not too hard about that one. But I think it goes 5-0. Same exact amount of goals. I think they do keep a clean sheet. Leicester has frankly been worse over the last 13 to 15 games than Southampton have. They just got the benefit of inheriting 13 or 14 points, essentially. But the new guy, Van Nistelrooy, has been abysmal. We talked about it in the recap or preview of Matchday 29. It just hasn't been good for them. Their last win was, December 4th or whatever that was.
Their last win, is January 26th with their last win over Tottenham. Prior to that, it goes all the way back to December 3rd.
Yeah, so one win since the beginning of December, and most of the other results have been losses. Yeah. So it's really difficult. It's really difficult to see them doing anything well. So I think I go 5-0. City are still going to push for Champions League, and I think they make a good case in this one.
Well, what was the Haaland injury that he picked up in the FA Cup?
Let me look up the exact specific injury. I want to say it was a lower body injury.
Oh, so that sounds more like they're just shutting down Haaland because they just signed him to a 10-year contract. That's what I was getting at. Is that it feels like, we'll just kind of let you sit out the rest of the season. It's a lost season. You're not in the running for. It's still in the running for the Golden Boot, but if he's got anything. Yeah, it
looks like an ankle injury. They think that they want him to be fit in time to play in a further part of the remainder of the season. I don't know if that just means keep him out till the FA Cup final.
Right. But
then they mention the summer's FIFA Club World Cup. So if they're mentioning that specific event, then maybe they're just kind of putting a timeline on, hey, it's not serious, but we do want to give you an estimation of when we expect him to play. So I don't know, but ankle injury is tough. But hey, they expect him to play at some point. So we'll see. I think it'll end up being one of those, kind of like we already mentioned, depending on where we're at, match day 36, 37, 38, if we're still battling for Champions League at that point, you probably think about playing a 90% Haaland over 100% anyone else in there. But yeah, ankle injury is tough. I still think they'll get it done, though, 5-0.
Yeah, still get it done. Yeah, I mean, he's 6 off of Mo Salah, who's, pretty much running away with the Golden Boot, the Silver Boot, and probably Player of the Year as well. With his goal involvement for the league leaders, hard to argue with it at this point. But yeah, we'll move on from that match there to Newcastle and Brentford. Newcastle hosting Brentford. This is also on Wednesday. How do you have this one going?
Brentford is in good form. Newcastle's been kind of wishy-washy over the last bit. But I think Newcastle at home takes it 3-1. They are the better team. And I think that, again, similarly to Brighton, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, Fulham, City, Chelsea, all those teams, they're all in the running for the Champions League. And they have good matchups to extend that cushion between 11 and 4. So I think Newcastle takes it 3-1, kind of knocks Brentford out of that European competition talk.
Yeah, I've got the same result, just a different scoreline, 1-0 for Newcastle. I think that Brentford starts to come back down a little bit from their run of good form. They started already leaking out a little bit here after their 3 wins in 4. But I think it continues here. Yeah, it just, being at home is always worth at least a half goal, usually. So,
yeah,
I think that they take it. And then to Southampton and Crystal Palace. Southampton, obviously the worst team, points-wise. Performance-wise, you could argue, obviously, as you did, that Leicester has been worse of late, just from the eyeball test. And because points, I mean, they're basically the same. Yeah, since that December 3rd. Let's see. Since December 3rd, they actually have the same amount of points since then. Yeah. So I think that this is not a competition. I think Crystal Palace is, we've talked about them, is the coming alive in the latter part of the season after having an abysmal start, sort of the opposite trajectory of Leicester City. And I think they take this one 3-0. I think this is easy for them.
Yeah, I have it as 4-0. You hit it on the head. Nothing else to say.
Yeah, it's that one's going to be a textbook one, I'm assuming. And now we go to the Merseyside derby, with Liverpool this time hosting, as Everton had their remake a few weeks ago. Do you think that Liverpool continues their dominance in this one, for as far as the season? I know that the last Merseyside didn't go quite their way, but how about this one?
I believe that Everton will make it 4 straight 1-1 draws in this one. A 5th straight draw in general. Everton has been a team that has molded their play around who they're playing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's pretty unique in the Premier League, especially when it comes to a team that, I don't know, they weren't very good at the beginning, as we've seen some of these other teams at the bottom, like, try to change everything and adapt their play and figure it out. When really, if you just take it game at a time, you can start to get results. I think Everton's done a really good job of that. And I think they know Liverpool. It's a Merseyside derby. It's in Anfield. I think they go in there and they take it 1-1. That'll feel like a win for Everton.
For sure. I actually have it as a draw as well. Mine is 2-2. I think that Everton gets a late one that just kind of, maybe they get 2 late on. Liverpool's kind of taking their foot off the gas, and they get one in like the 80 and like the 78th minute, and then like the 87th minute for Everton, just to put a thumb in their eye, just to make Liverpool upset. Like, we had this in the bag, and now we've let 2 points get away. Can't coronate ourselves quite yet. I still think that they'll get the job done eventually, but not this week. One more week at least before they can really make it an insurmountable amount. And then to wrap up the midweek on Thursday, we've got Chelsea and Tottenham. A really fun-looking match at the beginning of the season. Now we're down into April at this point, and looking at it like, boy, I mean, I don't really care about this. It's a London derby, so you kind of always have to care. But I think it's going to be pretty easy for Chelsea, 4-2.
Yeah, this one, I mean, it's one of those that's kind of weird because you're looking at Chelsea in 4th, Tottenham in 14th.
Yeah.
And normally this would be a game where you're like, whoa, 4th is clearly going to beat 14th.
Yeah.
I have a similar gap. I have it 2-0 Chelsea winning. I do think they're the better team. But it's also one of those games where literally Tottenham could come out and win 5-1. You just never know what it's going to be like, what's going to happen. But I got to go with what the table tells me. I think Chelsea's going to win. But it is kind of strange to be at this point in the season and having Man U in 13, Tottenham in 14.
Yeah.
And them being the underdogs. But history tells me that I should probably pick them to win some games. I don't know, but they're only 15 points off of 4th, which I feel like at this point in the season, that gap typically is bigger. So you can kind of see, we'll most likely see that gap expand a little bit more as these next few weeks go on. But it is interesting to see only 5 games have really separated these teams. So cool to see that. I think that Tottenham, you'll live to see another day, hopefully play a better team over the weekend. But midweek, Chelsea, I think, is going to get it done.
All right, and that brings us to the end of match day 30. With things, well, depending on how things go, obviously. Anything you want to cover before we head on out of here for the midweek matches to resume?
I hope that the U.S. men's national team can learn how to play better, and that's all I got to say.
Yeah. I certainly hope so. I mean, we've got... It's sort of a gift and a curse that we don't have to worry about qualifying because, you know, it relieves pressure from people who need to have pressure on them so they can get used to having pressure.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, we've only had not Postecoglou, that's Tottenham, Pochettino in there for a little while. So maybe
also Tottenham, but
so hopefully he can get them all straightened out here shortly. We'll see. We'll see. But until we get to the weekend with a recap and prediction episode, why don't you go ahead and grab your coffee, watch some soccer, and we'll see you on the other side. Kuda Hafiz.